Welcome to the Cricket Badger IPL Daily Podcast 2021. The Indian Premier League 14th edition. It's great to have you with us. From the first match all the way to the final. Chennai Super Kings, Delhi Capitals, Kolkata Knight Riders, Mumbai Indians, Punjab Kings, Rajasthan Royals, Royal Challengers Bangalore, Sunrisers Hyderabad. May the best team win. Brought to you in association with Who Knows Wins. Put your money where your mates are, and play along with the Cricket Badger.
Hello and welcome everybody to the Cricket Badger IPL Daily. I am still not James the Cricket Badger, I am still Nakul Pande, the Deputy Badger. James is off having a nice refreshing pint of Gazprom, and I am joined once again by Neil Virani and by Claire Sanderson wrestling with her Wi-Fi connection to discuss the midweek double header. Earlier today, the Delhi Capitals put up 127 for 9, which was chased down with 10 balls to spare by the Kolkata Knight Riders by 3 wickets. And the Punjab Kings put up 135 for 6 in the evening game, which was chased down by the Mumbai Indians with 6 wickets to spare with an over remaining. That means that Mumbai and KKR are both now on 10 points either side of the line for the playoffs. Claire, we'll start with you because you have the most interest, as it were, in the latter game, which probably has the bigger bearing on the playoff positions, given that Punjab Kings were also on 8 points. A win-win or a lose-lose for you, having an interest in both sides? Well, we're struggling to hear Claire at the moment. I feel like a newsreader in a failing studio. Neil, so at the end of today, we've ended up with basically the playoff situation looks a tiny bit more clear, maybe with KKR and Mumbai winning, but we've sort of ended up where we were yesterday with we think that those top 5 going into 4.
Yeah, I don't know how much we've actually moved on because, quite frankly, I don't trust any of these teams apart from KKR at the moment to continue this. Actually, no, scratch that. Add Mumbai in there just because by losing previously against RCB and against Chennai, they'd put their backs against the wall, which we all know that's when Mahela, actually gets out of bed and starts doing his job, and they just roll off a load of victories to win the tournament from nowhere. But yeah, I don't know if we know anything more. Certainly, we don't know anything more about the teams than we did before. Punjab did Punjab things. Somehow, almost managed to scrape victory from the Jaws defeat and then throw it away at the end again. Mumbai backed against the wall within the game as well. Came to rely on old faithful Pollard and Pandya. KKR continuing this excellent streak that they're on, and Steve Smith not being a T20 player. So yeah, pretty much what we thought beforehand.
Yeah, Steve Smith, perhaps not a huge surprise. Before we go through those games, Claire, are you still struggling to hear us? I can see you adjusting your settings now. So yeah, in the first game, there was both teams were missing a key player, with Andre Russell suffering a hamstring injury in KKR's tight loss to the Chennai Super Kings, and Delhi Capitals losing Prithvi Shaw to an ankle injury. Probably fair to say that KKR coped with their big absence better than Delhi did, with also Marcus Stoinis missing. Came in for Dre Russ in the end. It was Tim Southey who did okay. Sandeep Warrior also coming in for Prasidh Krishna, which made a small difference. But Delhi without Prithvi Shaw and without Marcus Stoinis. Suddenly, a lot of the intent seemed to leak out of the Delhi batting today.
Yeah, and I think actually Stoinis was a double blow, as well as his role as finisher within the Delhi first choice team. We've seen in the Big Bash that his best position is up top. So if he'd been there to take over from Prithvi Shaw, then maybe it would have been like for like. Instead, they brought in Steve Smith. I assume Ajinkya Rahane is still an option at Delhi, but he's pretty much the same as Smith in terms of the type of player that they are. And I think it switched Shikhar Dhawan's role from being, although a more aggressive accumulator than he had been previously, it'd always been Prithvi Shaw who really went after the bowling, and Dhawan just kind of mopped up in his slipstream. Now he had to take on the bowling to begin with, and he did so pretty effectively. I think he scored 4 or 5 boundaries in the 4 or 5 overs that he was actually in. But when he got out, then I think Smith really did struggle. I know people will say that this is the anchor role that he's there to play, but actually it isn't, and you don't really get the feeling with Smith that he does have that second, third, fourth gear that you see with say Virat Kohli when he plays that role, or Dawid Malan. He really seemed to struggle today. It almost seemed a mercy when he got out.
Claire, who we can hopefully hear now, Kolkata Knight Riders being impressive yet again, and the spinners doing fine work, Chakravarti and Narine. But let's talk about Lockie Ferguson coming into the 11 and doing very, very well, bowling quick on a slow pitch. KKR look a completely different team to the first half of the tournament.
Well, obviously Lockie Ferguson learned his trade a little bit, practiced a bit in Yorkshire over the summer, so that's nice to see him doing well.
I'd love to say I did that on purpose.
But it's difficult because I've been at work all day. I didn't see a lot of it, but it's just really nice to keep up with what I can. But nice to see him doing well and playing that role that was sort of missing a bit for KKR. So, but yeah, like I say, I haven't really seen much of that match, so it's difficult to comment much.
And then
more.
onto the batting innings. Delhi used a lot of spinners up top again. Akshar Patel, R. Ashwin, Lalit Yadav. Rabada didn't come on until the 10th over, I think. And Neil, it was working for them to a large extent. Iyer and Gill both going under a run of ball at the top of the order. Morgan out early. Dinesh Karthik out for below a run of ball. But we're talking about a West Indian great later in the show. But we had another one here, Sunil Narine, proving he's still a double threat.
Yeah, and it was a bit weird actually. I thought with Narine, I actually thought there was the opportunity to bring him in when Rana came in, just due to the fact that there was still spin to be played out, and Narine historically has been absolutely brutal against spin, but quite shaky against pace. What doesn't happen as much against pace is that he'll carry away. He'll still have a mad swipe at everything. And we saw what happened to Rabada there. Narine was not in control of that over at all, but still took him for 16, 17 in about 5 balls, which basically sealed the game for KKR. Narine's one of my favourite players when it comes to T20. Greatest spin bowler in T20 history, but his batting has got a freedom in that he's actually embraced the pinch hitter's role. And when he goes in, he doesn't start to try to play like a proper batsman. Batter. He knows exactly what he's there to do. He's there for a good time, not a long time. And he takes full advantage of that. And that's sealed a game which, to be fair, KKR had started to let slip just a little bit. It was getting into sort of nervous territory, and he pretty much closed it out with that little cameo.
Yeah, 3-wicket win, but stats coming out that it was the most balls to spare in a 3-wicket win. So in the end, it was fairly comfortable. Delhi Capitals still on 16 points, but missed a chance to go top of the table in their own right for at least a couple of days. There was some. I know you didn't watch much of it, Claire, but there was some analysis on Sunil Narine. People are still trying to work out exactly how he does what he does with the ball, but he keeps finding a way after all of these. Keeps getting called for his for various actions and keeps having to reset himself, but he keeps finding a way to come back and be effective.
Yeah, well, he seems to. I mean, the magician. So, like, it's some sort of magic that he must keep finding. And like Neil says, he's always been one of my favourite cricketers. So, always nice to see him doing well. And I'm just trying to look up his bowling figures now. 2 for 18. Yes.
Yeah, he got player of the match, 2 for 18, and then 21 off 10 balls. It's Narine from a few years ago, really, with being a genuine option. No longer opening the batting, but still a useful addition. And KKR continuing their net run rate boost. They got one of those, having missed out on net run rate the last 2 seasons. Moving on to a game, to the evening game from Abu Dhabi, where the Punjab Kings and the Mumbai Indians played out what in the end was a really good game, where the Punjab Kings just couldn't quite get over the line. Their batting on spin-friendly conditions relied unusually, Neil, on a South African, Aidan Markram.
Yeah, who was misused as well. Aidan Markram has started opening the innings for South Africa recently when Quinton de Kock wasn't available. He was playing with Yanaman Malan against, I think, the West Indies, but definitely against Pakistan as well, and also Zimbabwe. And he was going absolute great guns. He'd been given that license to really take advantage of the power play. And I thought that Punjab should have opened with him instead of Mandeep, who really seems to struggle, and Punjab lost that impetus. But Markram was there while all were falling around him, kept his head, rotated the strike well, and just accumulated with Deepak Huda before starting to open up. And just when it seemed that he was going to lead the late charge, just tried to sweep the wrong ball. It was 2 full, took his off stump. But 40 odd off about 27 balls, the spine of that innings from Punjab.
Didn't have Mayank Agarwal, who was out with a stiff neck, which, having read into concussion, and we know he got a concussion in the England series, is a little bit of a worry. Hopefully, it isn't that serious, and it's just, I don't know, he slept with the wrong pillow or something, and he'll be back. But Claire, I mean, you're a Punjab fan, Badger. Would you like to have seen Markram up the order? And also, how do you solve a problem like Chris Gayle? Because we're again having these discussions about the, indisputably the greatest batter in T20 history, but there's no doubt he doesn't have much left in the tank.
Yeah, he's still the poster boy, but he needs to be getting runs to keep that place in the team. And like you said, I thought it was a bit of an odd batting order. Like Markram would have been better coming in higher up, and then of course Gale's failed, but at least Markram came back and did something. But yeah, there seems to just be a lot of chopping and changing, and not really any settled batting order. And then, like with the big guy not really firing, it's all a bit tricky for my boys, I'm afraid. Yeah, disappointing.
There's a few overseas players you could bring in. They're all bowlers, really, like some Adil Rashid and Chris Jordan, who came onto the field at one point as a sub fielder for Chris Gayle at one point, which has got to be the biggest upgrade in cricket history.
He was only on for 5 minutes. I was keeping an eye on that. It wasn't long because the commentary team were all over it. But within a minute or two, he was back on the pitch. So I'm not having that.
No. Yeah, teams will always play around with those. It did, yeah. Gale was back on the field being hidden somewhere, but with they got to a score with the bat getting past Bumrah, who was superb. Again, the big wicket, Neil of Nicholas Pooran, and who knows what would have been if he hadn't fallen early, because I know he had a poor start first half of the tournament, but he is someone who can inject some life into any middle order, I think. And then with the ball, actually, I think Punjab did really, really well to push Mumbai as far as they did.
Yeah, absolutely. They kept the batters thinking all the way through from Mumbai. Mumbai, coming off the back of several poor results, didn't really get any freebies to absolutely go after. Bishnoi yet again showed what an absolutely superb prospect he is. Some people have said that he's ready to be a potential for the World Cup squad, considering how Indian leg spinners have done otherwise in international colours. There's some logic to that. I think he's been absolutely superb. Arshdeep Singh is one of my favourite young Indian players at the moment. His bowling is often unheralded, but he's been absolutely superb, and I thought he was excellent today again.
Felt a little bit sorry, Claire, for Arshdeep towards the end. He bowled. He knew what he wanted to do. Pollard and Hardik at the end after. We'll come to Saurav Tiwari in a second, but let's just kind of jump to the end, as it were. Pollard and Hardik carry their reputation. Arshdeep did what he could, but it still wasn't enough.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was a really solid performance, but there's a saying that catches win matches, and I think a couple of crucial ones went down, not least the one right at the end. On the boundary, Deepak Huda might have caught that. It could have been a different story. And, Hardik being dropped earlier by Mandeep. So, yeah, I know, and De Kock, the dropped by Markra, and that just pushing over the boundary for a four. So there's it's fine margins in it. And I thought those were like really crucial moments in our defeat.
Yeah, Deepak Huda didn't have a good game. 28 off 26 balls, struggled to get going, and then two big misfields potentially in the last over. Although probably the game was won by then. Neil, there's a couple of Mumbai batters we've got to discuss. I know a lot of people made a lot about Surya Kumar Yadav, but a golden duck really isn't particularly material. Certainly did a lot less damage than Quinton de Kock's 27 off 29 balls, where yet again he really struggled. It didn't seem to have, for such a good player, much of a game plan to score off the spinners.
Yeah, there was, I think it was Ian Chappell, when he was once talking about a run of low scores, said that he wasn't playing badly because he just wasn't in long enough to actually play badly. And it seems to be that way with Yadav at the moment. So I'm not particularly worried. We were discussing this on the WhatsApp group, and a couple of bad games isn't going to erase several seasons of excellent performances, as far as I'm concerned. It's actually an end result of having the IPL so close to the World Cup that the initial squads are already out there, and now people are starting to second guess off one or two games.
Oh, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, asking if there were going to be any changes. Mumbai did drop Ishan Kishan, which we sort of trailed today, and Saurav Tiwari coming in did a pretty decent job to keep the scoreboard ticking on a good pitch, and just kind of seemed like he timed his acceleration pretty well. I know he got out probably chasing one that he should have left, but well, either of you can take this one, but he seemed to understand his role pretty well.
Great anchor, anchored a short chase really, really well, and he did that in the game against Chennai as well. I bet in a losing cause, but he still scored 50 or 40 there. And today I thought he played really well, holding it together so that Hardik and Pollard had the opportunity to go after it late on.
don't know if you'd necessarily agree with this as a Punjab fan, but it is nice to see Hardik Pandya, Claire, back in hitting form. I sort of joked on Twitter that Shami was playing 4D chess, bowling Hardik back into form ahead of the World Cup.
Well, yeah, there is a bit of that, and as you know, on the Twitter group, I am a bit of a Mumbai Indians fan as well. So it's really tough to see, your team go down, but then when it's your other team that's doing it, it's not bad. And like you say, seeing Hardik find a bit of form was really nice, quite reassuring. He was just able to, play himself in and just feel his way through it. So that was, reassuring. Small consolation, I think.
Yeah, he hit 4 fours and 2 sixes. A couple of them Deepak Huda aided at the end, but seemed to be striking it quite nicely and came through that period where everyone was bowling wide Yorkers at him. It's one of those players who he's made it harder for himself by how good he is, because everyone now starts bowling full and wide at him. No one wants to give him anything in the hitting up. But you could it's quite rare that you can see in one ball, Neil, the hitting confidence come back. As soon as he got one away through the offside, you sort of thought, oh, this game's over.
Yeah, and people have been bowling that tactic at him for quite a while. I think possibly since the England tour earlier this year. I know that Archer and Wood were bowling sort of wide, sort of hard length and wide of the wicket, and he was struggling a bit to get them away in the way that we're used to. So hopefully this is going to bring back the confidence, because he hasn't been the hitter that we've seen over the last few years. And B, he's starting to actually formulate a plan for that tactic against him, because if that's been succeeding for the past 6 months, then that's all he's going to face when he comes in at the World Cup. So it's good to see that he's working on something, and maybe bowlers will start second guessing themselves before they bowl to him again and start offering up more freebies, because they've had it a little bit easier than they would have normally.
Shami and Arshdeep both continued to bowl wide to him, even though they you often talk about bowlers wanting to have more variety in their game in T20 cricket, but they both decided to stick to what was working for a time, or at least try and make it harder. But Claire, we do need to talk about Ravi Bishnoi. We talked about it, mentioned him very, very briefly, but what a bowler he's turning into.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought it was great today. Obviously, to get to being on a hat-trick position was awesome. Getting big wickets, and reliable. And how nice to have a go-to bowler in the team. Shame for him.
Keeping Adil Rashid out of the side, and we talked about sort of role players with Saurav Tiwari, but Nathan Ellis has come in and has done a sort of. He's not a very heralded player, but he bowled some potentially very tricky overs and did it in a sort of unglamorous, showy way. But 3 overs, 1 for 12 at any stage of a T20 is very, very handy.
Yeah, and he's been brought in replace the 2 big fishes, that were paid an arm and a leg for, and never really came off at all. So it's great to see him coming in and just fitting straight into a role and pulling it off. It's good for him. Yeah, good for the team.
Third time lucky with the Australians after Jai Richardson and Riley Meredith did very little. I mean, I think he's talked himself about he's not tall, he's not quick, he doesn't get noticed as much like those guys, but is doing a job. Punjab have a few of those players. I mean, Aidan Markram bowled 3 overs at the top really well. Arshdeep is one of those bowlers as well. But we'll come on to the big man. Got his 300th T20 wicket today. Has taken over 300 catches and has over 10,000 runs. And it was a lovely tribute to Nasser Hussain there, where he almost gestured to the dressing room, going, "Effing number 300, effing number 300." I don't know how much more we've talked a little bit before. I think last year or maybe in the first half of the tournament, we did our who do we think is the greatest IPL player ever? Did you pick Kieron Pollard?
I'd have put him up there. I'd have probably gone for Malinga, I think. But Pollard is, whenever there's that conversation around the best T20 players of all time, Gale's obviously the big one, and Narine's in there as well. Pollard isn't that far behind. I think he's second most sixes ever, and that's considering he faces far fewer balls than Chris Gale does. And he is the definition of clutch. There was a final against Chennai, I believe, where Mumbai were nothing for 5, and he managed to drag them to about 140, and Mumbai won from there. He's a big game player. He's someone you would want on your team, and you wouldn't want to face him for more reasons than one. Winning is all that matters to Kieron Pollard. And I think personally, sometimes his behaviour goes beyond what's acceptable, but always because he's going after the win rather than anything petty. He's that single-minded. If he was playing football, he'd be like Cristiano Ronaldo. He'd be going down for the soft penalties, but he would be winning trophy after trophy because he has that mentality.
I don't know if Kieron Pollard necessarily. I don't know if that characterization as someone who indulges in gamesmanship is quite fair, but he's certainly ultra competitive. I was thinking today when we saw Krunal Pandya withdrew an appeal for a near run out. I was thinking Kieron Pollard wouldn't be happy with you withdrawing an appeal. That seems very un-Pollard, on Mumbai Indians. But Claire, he is one of those players who almost the mere presence of him in the opposition makes you think that you don't have the game won. And he came in and hit 15 off 7 balls and just made things a little bit easier. Where would he be in your all-time T20 power rankings, as it were?
Oh, he'd definitely be up there. I mean, I'm a massive Chris Gale fan, obviously, but I think Kieron Pollard, because of his all-round abilities, he's just got to be right up there with the best of them. He's sort of reliable, and his fielding skills are outstanding for such a big guy. Some of the catches he's taken, I don't know if you could ever call him nimble, but he is athletic when it comes to his fielding skills. So, yeah, a true all-rounder, and definitely one you'd want in year 11. Or I'd want in my 11 anyway.
100%. I don't think there are many who would. He'd almost certainly be one of your 4 overseas players in an IPL all-time 11. Took a decent catch today to dismiss Deepak Hooda, made it look extremely easy. So yeah, the 2 West Indian greats of T20 cricket, the players of the match today, Sunil Narine and Kieron Pollard. That leaves Kolkata Knight Riders and the Mumbai Indians both on 10 points from 11 games, 5 wins and 6 losses. Kolkata Knight Riders with a much better net run rate. They're 2 points ahead of the Punjab Kings and the Rajasthan Royals. Rajasthan have a game in hand, and RCB have a game in hand as well on KKR and Mumbai. They're sort of in 2 points ahead of those two, and 4 points behind the teams ahead of them. Looking ahead to tomorrow's game, which is those 2 teams with two of those teams with a game in hand. It is in Dubai. It is Rajasthan Royals against RCB. And RCB got over the line against, more than got over the line. They absolutely hammered the Chennai Super Kings, thanks to Glenn Maxwell and thanks to Harshal Patel. You'd think, Neil, if they win this, they're in the playoffs, and actually could, given that I think they play. They have I think they play.
Oh my God! Sorry. There's an enormous spider running towards me.
Well, it's just that exciting. It's just that exciting here on the Cricket Badger Live. Yeah, they played the Delhi Capitals in the last game, with their next two games before that against Punjab Kings and the Sunrisers Hyderabad, RCB will be thinking that they've got a chance potentially of making the top two.
I think if they play like they did against in the last match, then yeah, absolutely. If you can get, I mean, AB hasn't really come to the party since the restart. Virat seems to be churning out 50s for fun, although he gets out straight away afterwards. And Maxwell looks in good nick. They
Glenn Maxwell, couldn't get a run for Punjab Kings, and now what the hell is going on there?
I do wonder if Nicholas Pooran might be the same next year when he lands up somewhere. Although he's doing a bit more now in the second half of the tournament. Yeah, it used to be RCB where genius went to die. But Rajasthan Royals have looked okay since the restart. They have come up against a couple of teams who are simply better than them in the resumption, but they did lose to the Sunrisers yesterday, which was a big blow to their playoff ambitions. But they could make things very interesting, and probably will definitely leapfrog Mumbai with a win, and could, if they have a really big win, leapfrog KKR. Claire, yet again, we found ourselves in a situation where every game changes the playoff picture in the IPL.
Yeah, and I just think, I mean, it's awesome, isn't it? Like every game is so important. There's no, half measures. They're all going for the win. I just think it's so exciting, and like yesterday, I was just so willing Sunrisers to win. I couldn't believe it. I thought that was amazing. Really good game of cricket. So I love that every game is just thrilling and so important. And keeps us all on our toes. Just like this spider is actually, isn't it? At the moment.
Certainly does. Well, thank you, Neil. Thank you, Claire, and thank you to the spider for your presence here on the Cricket Badger Live. We'll be back tomorrow at around the same time to discuss RCB against the Rajasthan Royals from Dubai. But please do like the podcast, share it with your friends, leave us some reviews if you're listening on iTunes, and please do retweet the videos if you're watching on Facebook or on Twitter, or share the YouTube links. But until then, from everyone here at the Cricket Badger podcast, which will, we hope, include James Butler back in the hot seat tomorrow, it's goodbye.